I think my vertigo is back. Oh no.
I didn't think vertigo was real. You know, like Epstein-Barr.
Oh, it's a real thing. I had it last year and I had to take to my bed. I'm okay. It's subsiding.
Are you sure? Because if you need to lie down, there's room next to the used condom.
Hello, lovers. Welcome back to And Just Like That, The Writer's Room, the official companion podcast of And Just Like That from Max. I'm Michael Patrick King, writer, director, and executive producer of And Just Like That, and I'm here with executive producer and writer Julie Rottenberg.
Hi.
Executive producer and writer Elisa Zuritsky.
Hello.
Co-executive producer and writer Samantha Irby.
Hello.
As well as executive story editor and writer Rachel Palmer.
Hello.
Well, here we are again, everybody. I'm very excited because it's time to get into episode 8 of season 3. Happily Ever After, written by Julie Rottenberg and Elisa Zuritsky and directed by Anu Valia. As always, please make sure to watch that episode before you listen to the podcast because it's just so much more fun for you, I think. Whereas we're just floating here in space.
We'll just ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Keep listening.
Okay, this is an interesting episode because really what I think this episode starts with the thrust of is Aidan suddenly arriving from Virginia unannounced, is the fact that the last time we saw Aidan in Carrie's house, he was looking directly into the face of the man underneath her, which is Duncan. And we talked a lot in the writing room about the fact that why is Aidan suddenly here? And what's his energy? And of course, Carrie says she is unexpected. And in the voiceover at the end, he says happiness arrives surprisingly and quite unexpectedly. He shows up with 2 giant duffel bags.
Claiming that he can stay longer than a day.
And there's a reason that he says, but it's a surprise to her. And the first thing they comment on is the fact that Carrie has begun to furnish the house by having a purple rug.
I love that he said, why purple? And she was like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, that says it all, right? Why not? And we talked a lot about that rug and came up with why not. And she says, keep talking like that and we're going to get along great. And then she leads him into, very important, she leads him into the second bedroom, not the primary bedroom with his stuff.
And he presumptuously assumes they will be splitting the closet.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the last time they were together, they had that really intense conversation about this misunderstanding. Did you betray me? What did we agree on? Do you want to have sex with other people? No. And then they came back together and everything seemed great. And then he sees his, this guy who happened to have his shirt open kind of low.
I don't think Aidan noticed that, but I'm happy that you did, Elisa.
I noticed it because, let's face it, Johnny Cake is handsome and he's dropping off, his work. I mean, it's all very threatening,
It raised many, many questions.
He's knocking at the back door instead of the front door.
Yeah, it's all very
right.
cozy suddenly.
And anyway, Aidan has showed up because he has blissfully been able to come up here. And the first thing he says is, can you believe I'm not going to have to leave? I can be here for more than overnight. And I thought you were going to say the last time we saw them in a closet was in Sex and the City. And this is a definite homage to that moment where he says, should I just move your stuff? And he goes, because that's a reference to the big closet fight scene that they had in Sex and the City. And it shows that he's aware of everything.
Shows how far they've come. and that he's going to be in the cat room.
The cat room. And it's a cat room because the set decorating people put a metal cat on the mantelpiece just in case you missed it.
And the crazy cat tree.
And the beginning of what he says is, and this is really the story where it starts, is when he says, I hope you don't have any plans for the rest of the day.
Okay, so before we get back to that, I want to, if you're an avid listener to this podcast, you've already learned the term laying pipe, which, just to catch you up, in case you haven't heard that, is like the sitcom-y way or sitcom writer's room way of saying we've got to figure out how to explain something that we don't feel like explaining but has to be explained. And this very first scene with Carrie and Aiden is a great example of us realizing how soon do we want to tell the audience and in what way do we want to tell the audience why Aidan is allowed to be there for all those days. And it was a little tricky to figure out, well, how much have they talked about ahead of time? As a writer's room, it was a tricky little
Right, and what we came up with is the fact that
exercise.
they hadn't talked about it a lot, and we have her being very surprised so that we could reveal it later. But what they lead with is the kiss.
Yeah.
Right.
As-
It's cute. It's sexy.
It's
what are you doing? I
happy.
hope
It's
you
a
don't
ha-
have
it's
plans.
good news.
And he
Yeah.
is
The rest of your
incredibly
life.
focused on her. And he says, you don't have to go downstairs to meet anyone. You're perfect. You don't need notes on your book. And she says, keep talking like that, and this will work out fine. But if this was an X-ray, you would start to see the
crack.
beginning of the break.
Right. Their little triangle suddenly.
And the fact of the matter is that we're going to talk differently, I think, about Carrie and Aiden in this episode. I want to put them all together at first because it's such an interesting theme that we're following that I want to go beat to beat to beat with just Carrie and Aiden. So after they kiss, the next time we see them,
They've been in bed all day.
they've been in bed all day.
7:28
7:30.
a.m. or
It's
p.m.
7 a.m. or p.m. I mean, that idea that someone has had afternoon sex and fallen asleep and taken a nap, it reminded me, the way Anu shot it, and just in my references, it reminded me of that scene in Romeo and Juliet in the Zeffirelli movie where they don't know if it's day or night until they hear the morning lark. And then they go, oh, it's morning, get up. But they're so beautifully pastoral in those sheets. And he looks like he's 12 with his messy hair. And she looks so comfortable.
True. I want to give it up for Andre, our incredible DP of this particular episode, Andre Bowden Schwartz. I hope I'm saying that right.
He joined us this year, and his work is exquisite.
Beautiful.
Between him and Tim Norman, we have the most beautiful show from the camera and lighting department. It's just evocative. I think this is almost the most beautiful season we've ever done. Certainly the most New York season we've ever done. Physically beautiful.
So it's this fairy tale moment where they've been in bed all day, and of course that kind of bliss can't last long. He is brought back to planet Earth when he looks at his phone and sees, and you just hear him. Like, I feel like, when you know someone so well and they just exhale,
Right.
like she knows something's
Especially
up.
when someone's looking at their
Their
phone. I feel
phone.
like we've gotten very good at listening to each other's like phone reaction sounds.
And she's so good that she catches that number from the hallway because she's already pulled herself away from the bed to go downstairs to get notes on her book. And he's like, how long? I mean, it's like, how long are you going to be gone? An hour? We're going to have dinner? And do you have anything to eat? And she's just like, no, because we made love all day.
Food shop, yeah.
But it's the beginning of like, I'm here now.
Right.
Like our life starts.
And again, it's like the fantasy come true. He's here, and then also the logistical challenge. That she did have plans and she didn't grocery
So
shop.
she's standing across the bedroom from him and she hears that,
Because it was aimed at her.
Well,
I'm going to argue.
Yes, well, we had this
You know how I feel about this. Aiden is very manipulative in this scene, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like he gets a text and gets new information.
he does.
He's just like, oh, I'm so sad.
No, it's
Okay.
true. It's
Okay.
true.
No, it's a fair interpretation.
I wouldn't say it's fair. I'd say it's very specific to Rachel's point of view.
Nah,
There
I
are going to
bet-
be a
yeah.
lot of people who
Rachel's
think
not going to be the only person thinking that.
No,
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
going to argue the
It
other side.
is.
I'm going to
I
argue the
think-
other side. He didn't look at his phone for 5 hours and they made love and it was all about her.
But
And him. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I better look at my phone because my kid. And then there's nothing there.
But on Rachel, I might be on Team Rachel here because he
Team
might.
Rachel is also known as not Team Aiden.
Look, it's human.
Negative
We're-
Nancy.
No, but here's the thing.
Welcome to the writer's room.
We've all been manipulative at times. Like, it's not as if he's a villain
Yes.
because he's manipulative. Like, we all
It's subconscious.
have moments with our partners where they're going off to do something that you resent them for, and you might be a little passive aggressive, like, okay, I guess I'll walk the dog. You know, it's
I'll see if I can scrounge up something to eat.
I think it's human.
Yes, I don't think he's a monster,
Right.
but he
Well,
wants to spend the evening with
Jesus.
her.
100%.
Pull it
100%.
back,
But this is
everybody.
the writer's room.
We're too far ahead of the range. You're over your skis too far. He's not being passive aggressive or trying to stop her. He's giving given her a piece of information. That could still come, but
that's your interpretation.
I'm just talking about where we are in this moment. She says, let's go. There's plenty of stuff down in that. Why don't you go to that restaurant? And he goes, oh. And then now we get into the thing that is really annoying, which is the Wyatt song.
What's going on?
A new verse of the same song.
And then you have the reality that was under all that lightness of his first entrance, where it's all fun and games and happy reunion. And then you have the reality of why he's there. And I think the fact that he didn't tell her up top is probably a little bit of his
denial
and maybe embarrassment.
He actually says in the scene, I didn't want to ruin our great afternoon together.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him honesty for that.
I want to say, as a step parent, that it is so real that when you think everything's cool, there's always something with a kid.
Sure.
Like, it's almost like a perfect weekend, and then we pull that right back because that is often the reality as the childless one in a child-having couple. That, like, there's always some rug getting yanked out from under you, and you can't even complain because it's a kid and you're a monster if you complain.
Yeah, and you didn't want him to show up and be like, Aidan doesn't love me. And like, he wanted to show up and be like, I'm excited to be with you. I'm excited to be here. I'm happy, that we get this time together.
And he was thinking that the kid would maybe come around, but he is opening up a whole new, I would say, vulnerability show for her, which is that he announces the new information in the show is that the kid, Wyatt, after everything he's done, decides to leave his house and move in with his mother, Kathy. And he even says, I'm sitting down there, my other kid's with his cousin. I don't need to be here. I have a life in New York. Okay, now he has a life in New York because the kids are not in the picture.
Right. And just to remind you that, in the original accident that happened with Wyatt at the end of season 2, Wyatt was, desperate to get back to Aidan. It was like clearly Aidan was the favored parent at that point. And now, as kids do, he's flipped over to the mom. Yeah. And he's the rejected one. So
which
is.
And then we talked a lot about the fact that Carrie has to acknowledge this in this moment. She has to say, I won't go downstairs. I will go have dinner with you. I choose your need. It seems to be more important than me giving notes to a guy.
And that wasn't
about his
always
book.
When we broke this episode. I remember there was one version where she was like, "Ooh, sorry," and you said, like, I think she changes her plans. And I think the part of me that is like, no, she shouldn't have to change her plans because he's in a certain place. Like, I think it was important that she did.
Well, it's all this whole journey of like, what is Carrie willing? I mean, she's already gone fishing. She's gone to a virtual reality and killed zombies. She's put on clothing that she would have never worn. She's gone out of town.
She's torn.
Accepted the fact that he slept with his ex.
Sure.
And now this is like, okay, so I could give notes on a book. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to just choose notes on a book at this point.
Yeah, 100%. She loves him.
This,
and you make sacrifices for the person you love. Yeah.
He loves her more. What the fuck did I do? And he's honestly saying, what the fuck did I do that's so bad? How did I become the bad parent? And that's when she goes, you know what? Let's have dinner.
He needs to be chosen in that moment by her because he's not being chosen by Wyatt.
And I remember when we shot this, I think it was John Corbett, who plays Aidan so beautifully, who wanted to say, like, no, it's okay. And we were like, no, you take it. You accept that offer.
Yeah. Because deep down, that's what he wants.
Right.
/ needs.
Needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is a school of thought in the world that Aidan is as narcissistic as any of the other characters that we've had her with, where he's thinking about himself first. John Corbett is such an amazingly porous, lovely heart. of an actor that it's hard to find. But him saying, yeah, do what I need tonight, which is, and he's kind of aw-shucksing it.
Right,
Aw, shucks.
right,
Okay, as long as you think that's something you want to do, we'll do it.
Right. But you see the moment where Carrie is torn.
Yeah.
It's like then you're bailing on another commitment that she made.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, important to her.
Yeah, I don't know if he understands that that's even. I feel like this new book and this new partnership is new to her, and I don't know if even he understands, how important it is to her. So to him,
of course
it's
he doesn't. He already blew it off. He blew it off in the cat room scene. You don't need notes. You're perfect.
Right.
He doesn't think it's important.
But I do think they've talked about. I'm reading his thing, and she's like, in my mind, they've had conversations.
He knows.
Yeah, it's not
chapter,
a secret.
The chapter.
Oh, for sure.
Arrived.
But I just don't know if she's been so vulnerable with him as to be like, this is really important to me. This is a new thing that I'm nervous about. And I find this time very I don't know if she has said it in those many words.
Also, it's important to note that she's the one who's getting notes from him. So she's sacrificing her book for the dinner. She's sacrificing. It's her book that's supposed to be getting the notes. The attention was on her.
Right. First.
And so she then says, oh, okay, I can do without notes for dinner for you. But to your point, Rachel, that he doesn't know how important it is, that is very clear in the next scene that we see the two of them, which is in Carrie's closet when they're getting ready to go to Charlotte's art gallery opening. And he basically says, they're going to go to dinner first, and he says, why don't we invite Dunkin' Donuts to go to dinner with us? First of all, he doing Dunkin' Donuts is like...
He's making it a joke.
He's making him a character of a clownish nature.
Right.
And Carrie is very clear. No.
It's not like that.
We're not like that.
I feel like the way I understand this whole conversation is no matter what Carrie has said about what this means, Aidan doesn't fully empathize with it because it's not part of
he doesn't understand.
He doesn't. He's not her. He doesn't fully understand what it means, what they have. It's just not.
He doesn't understand.
He's different.
Can we talk about the realities of that as a writer?
Definitely.
When, so I find myself all the time having to say, this is actually work. I have to sit here and do that. And I look like I'm doing nothing, but this is work and this is important. I feel like that's a lifelong struggle.
It's so
when you're a writer.
Yeah.
It's people taking you seriously because they're like,
right, because you're sitting in your office. It looks like you could be watching television.
Sometimes I am, but most of the time.
But that's part of the process. Truly, it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
You got to walk around stuff for a while. But the fact of the matter is there's so much guilt attached to being a writer because you have to pull yourself away from whatever family unit or whatever relationship or whatever work thing your person has that you should be going to. You're like, no, I can't because I have to get up at 4 to do a rewrite. That's like saying I have to eat bluff la badou and do da bou abababou. It's like it doesn't translate. Why are you getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to write fictional people? Ruining my sleep. That's back to me.
It's kind of the same thing that Carrie had, she didn't understand the parent being a parent because she's not a parent, and she had to go down and see okay, now I get it. And they haven't really gotten there with her.
Yeah.
But in this scene, there's also a cute thing. Aidan's brought 2 duffel bags, and he never says what's in them. The first time she asks him, he says, it's my guns and furs. Right. And then this time he says, tube socks. And she goes, what's in the other one? He says, more tube socks. So he's just having fun, calling him Dunkin' Donuts. And what shirt should he wear?
Yeah. But also you see the alarm does go off for her. It's like, to be clear, the no doing your Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood thing. It's like she knows him really well.
Yes.
She knows what he's actually inclined
I think
to
she
do.
is so charmingly truthful and honest, trying to illuminate to him. She says, no, I don't know anything about him personally. And then he says the most incredible line, I find that hard to believe.
Right.
That is what? She's saying, I don't know anything about him personally. And Aidan's like, I find that hard to believe. And she says, well, believe it. She just like blows right by it and says, so he says, so wait a minute. Your books, basically, your relationship is basically page 22 sucks.
Like,
and she is honestly saying to him,
that's exactly what it is.
In a nutshell, page 22 sucks. But he's like, And then she says, look, don't get into all this.
Around.
They like couch it in a joke, permission to, cross the line. And she says, permission denied.
Right.
It's there.
Right.
Yeah, it's permission to not cross that boundary. And she's basically said, very smart, Rachel, that she says that already. It starts with the scene is about, I'm going to come across this boundary. And she goes, don't. And of course, he goes, okay. And then immediately the next time we see Aidan, he's crossing that boundary and asking her friends, what do you know about this cat? So now he's not only a donut, he's now some cat, some beatnik character or some jazz guy or something underneath her. He deliberately asks questions about him. She cannot let it go.
And of course, he's asking the very people who have had the worst experience with Duncan, yelling at them.
Coincidentally.
And there's no subterfuge there. It's like they're both like, he's a meanie.
Yeah, and he's a real meanie.
He's done nothing but be mean to them.
And you leave this scene and you come up on Carrie. The art exhibit is called Happily Ever After, and it's an installation of a woman who was an artist in the 80s, and it's sort of her evolution as an artist from then to now, from girl to female to wherever she is now, elder artist. And the mission statement, Elisa came up with the name. What is the name of the artist? Do you remember?
Oh, I think it was Katinka. I know her first name was Katinka, but I can't remember.
I mean, with a first name like Katinka. Do you need another?
Yeah.
But the mission statement, talk about that mission statement. It said Happily Ever After, which is, of course, the name of the episode. But the mission statement is...
And of the exhibit.
I think it just came out of... I feel like a bunch of years ago, there was like suddenly an explosion of like happiness scientists and articles and books all about like how we get to be happy and what is happiness and how do you measure your happiness. So
installations about happiness.
When we came up with the title, and you actually had the impulse of what the exhibit was, that was a very clear vision from you,
mattress on the floor.
But it just jumped into my head that like that's something that this artist would be trying to like circling. What is happiness? How do you get it?
So you have Carrie asking what is happiness, but she's almost, it's like a live action voiceover in a weird way.
Because like
she's
from
actually
Sex and the City.
It's a very weird thing.
I've spent my entire adult life haunted by the elusive concept of happiness. Is happiness a myth, a gift, a skill to master? Welcome to my version of Happily Ever After.
And that gets to the bigger scene. And as you look around the gallery, we went to great extent to make this gallery as believable as possible.
I wish we could have toured you through the entire,
Because the reality is, on the walls, the words that you see is, I'm not happy right now on one side. And on the other side of the gallery, it says, right now, I'm not happy. But the idea of people saying they're happy or not happy is important. The next beat is Charlotte telling about all the different phases of our lives and the different places we go through. And as they look back to the messy, messy bed that was the 80s, I couldn't help but wonder, isn't Carrie looking back at that last bed that she had with Aidan, which was such a mess, such a disaster? It was so messy and so young and complicated with cheating and affairs and secret smoking and that mess of who you are. And now she's looking at the new bed, which is tidy and clean, and I would say full of boundaries. In that moment, she's exploring both
and like
who she was and who she is in this same moment. But it's really, without even talking about Aidan, to me, it's her
reflecting
on who she was. And I mean, the Carrie joke is, I'm speaking of the 80s, I'm wearing a belt that I got at Charvari on 72nd Street. She's repurposing her old
too. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say, oh, I love that store because I remember that store.
No, but that pink dress with that belt, it's just great. But the Carrie story sort of does leave us here. The Carrie Aiden, it's a kind of a question. Why is he still asking questions about that guy after she drew the boundaries? Her looking at who she was versus who she is. And the name of the exhibit is Happily Ever After. And the episode for Carrie and Aiden ends with her writing her book, talking about how happiness suddenly and unexpectedly appeared on her doorstep. So we leave the gallery and we go, in Carrie's storyline, we go right back to her writing about, from her book's point of view, the woman is wondering how happiness suddenly and unexpectedly arrived on her doorstep, like a magnificent red bird, that you hold your breath and remain very still, fearing that it will fly away again. And you cut to Carrie and Aiden in bed, asleep, very still.
And I think at this point, she feels like she did the hard thing. She said, here's what's happening. Here's how it works with my downstairs neighbor. And it's like, her side of the street is clean.
She is holding herself tight, but she is remarking. She's holding herself very still, but she is remarking happiness could fly away again.
Yeah.
She's very aware. And, you know, this is a very, very old relationship, so there's a lot of water under the bridge. And we have a very, very new relationship also in this episode that is kind of going over some treacherous waters, which is Miranda and her relationship to her drinking. That is the old relationship that she's got to deal with in this. I always was worried that we weren't doing justice to Miranda's drinking problem. Did anybody else have that problem, Julie?
Well, we wanted to both be true to the reality of it. We didn't want to keep like waving a flag and doing a little I'm an alcoholic bell every time the girls are out drinking. Like you see, she has mineral water.
And the bottle's always on that table, and it's always mineral water.
And phony Negronis.
Yeah.
Phony Negronis, I'll say it with my Philadelphia accent. But we knew that it's under there. It never goes away. And what a perfect vehicle of joy who enjoys drinking to sort of raise that to the surface. Well, also the pitfalls of being in a new relationship, hiding the parts of yourself that you don't want to acknowledge exist.
Every now and then, somebody says something in the room that you know it's going to be in the show. And when Elisa pitched that Miranda says, maybe I'm not an alcoholic, maybe I'm just alcoholish, I was like, alcoholish? Has anyone ever thought that sentence? And I also, the first thing I wanted to do was run away from it, remember?
Yes,
I was like, we can't flirt with this. We cannot flirt with this.
Well, it's funny because I feel like the very thing that made you, that little voice that was wondering if we're not doing it justice, like the alcoholism, I feel, for me anyway, the impulse was all along, like after the first time we saw her in AA, I don't think any of us wanted to continue seeing her in meetings or building stories around meetings.
Right. It was a bummer.
So in a way, it was like we wanted to make her a little bit, I don't know, to me,
her bed was too well made. To go back to the gallery. Her bed was too well made, and we wanted to mess it up again.
But also not too much. Like, it was a weird thing. It was, so then it kind of led me to think.
Definitely didn't want her to slip.
We didn't want her to slip. In a way, we wanted her to have it both ways, or we wanted to, so it kind of was like a natural idea that maybe she herself would play around with this idea. And by the way, there are a lot of people out there who will say, I have a problem with alcohol, or I'm not the greatest drinker, and there are people.
Or I'm just not drinking right now, which is Miranda's soft pedals.
You know, there's an idea that there's a spectrum of alcoholism out there. So it seemed like it was right there for Miranda to play around with herself.
Because she doesn't want to be a bummer. As you said, she wants to hide. Like, it's that part
the
where
heavy thing.
The heavy thing or the ugly thing or the unmade bed thing of your relationship.
Well, and that idea, that conversation that she raises, I feel like we wrote that so many times. We circled how that would go because on the one hand, we felt like Carrie and Charlotte
The conversation in the gallery.
Yes, where she brings it to
tribunal,
the girls,
to her most trusted people, her rabbis. That on the one hand, you can see they would have a yikes, danger, Will Robinson,
scared,
but you can see her really in her lawyerly way, sort of laying out like I didn't always have a problem. Remember,
I think you made a very good case. Am I? No, I do. I think when she says, am I supposed to be defined by my darkest period? Maybe I was just unhappy at that point, and that's why I was drinking. I was hiding so much.
And I was questioning my sexuality. Like she really did build a pretty good case. And both Charlotte and Carrie,
they play that so perfectly, the two of them. The we're not on board, but we're not going to say it.
But we're not going to say it.
Right. Well, again, good boundaries,
you can see it in our
I think.
Right.
Well, and also you can see it in Charlotte's head, which we'll get back to because it literally knocks her into the most extreme vertigo thing that she's been fighting. She's literally being knocked off her center by this news, but just hanging in there. So what Miranda sort of puts in front of her two friends is I'm just thinking maybe that this is something I should explore. Now, I have people that are alcoholics, and that's why I ran so far away from it. I was like, the idea of anyone even thinking about it. My mother used to smoke, and I used to dream she put a cigarette in her hand again. So so when Charlotte sees Miranda with that drink, just holding it, it does knock her down.
That's her worst fear, I think, is that Miranda is going to think she can flirt with alcohol and she has to stop her at all
costs. And now
costs.
How do we get out of this heavy sort of thought? And what we do is we go pure Miranda. Miranda who couldn't stop eating the chocolate cake at home in Sex and the City, who couldn't leave it alone,
went
kept
into the
going
trash
to the refrigerator,
and dug it
going
out.
away. Out of the
Love you,
refrigerator.
Judy Toll.
Now we have this version, the And Just Like That version of the chocolate cake, which is a bottle of gin on a shelf.
Taunting her.
She thinks she's watching, of course, what?
Bye, Bingo.
Which is just...
What else would she be watching, guys?
No, let's just say she's watching Bye Bingo while doing a brief for work. So she's multitasking.
She's like the kids today.
Believable.
She's able to do many things. She's very intellectual. So she's like, I need a treat. And she goes to get a cookie, and then we have, I don't know, the musical equivalent of the theme from Jaws suddenly, just like her and the gin and the gin and her.
We skated past
so
an
beautifully directed
scene where Joy arrives with the gin. And this was another scene that we knew we had to be very careful about because we really wanted Joy to be not oblivious. She's been with Miranda. She's clocked that she doesn't drink. But we felt like this was an important moment to establish that Miranda doesn't want to be that person to say, actually, I better not have that in my house. It was sort of a...
She doesn't want to be that person, and she doesn't want to say it.
Yeah, no one wants to be an alcoholic.
No one wants to say
the point
it.
is we wanted to make Joy aware but not mean. Just like Aidan has no idea what writing is, so he's kind of like, I find that hard to believe. And Miranda's saying, I just drink mineral water. And Joy's oh.
And we played around with versions where Joy's like, you have to try. It's so good. You just have to take a sip.
In the earlier
scene. One could say a person might do if they didn't think they were with an alcoholic.
We thought it was clueless.
But maybe it was too far.
It was too far because Joy is smart. And all of a sudden, Cynthia, as an actress, says no, I don't have any mixers. And she says, oh, you don't drink.
Oh, how stupid of me. So we wanted to err on the side of Joy being overly...
But it was a process. I'm just going to say it was not only a process in the writer's room, but even in drafts, there was an ongoing process of
it's
refining
the Goldilocks.
it.
Too much, too little,
exactly.
just right.
There's a lot of...
We were either hitting it too
we
hard.
We do a lot of rewriting, guys. I just want to say, like, the first draft is not...
This just in.
Is not always... It's maybe in life, like, it's never done after one draft.
Well, I mean, you're dealing with real people and fictional people that we believe are real and real issues. And we know there are real people with drinking problems, and there are people that will now hate Joy if she says the wrong thing. And we don't want people to hate Joy, but we want to create...
We wanted her to be human.
Protect, just like you want to protect your characters, but you also want them to be human and flawed and all that stuff. So it's a delicate line.
You want to create a comedy trauma for them. Yeah. And that is Miranda tells her, I'm just not drinking right now. And then thinks, what am I going to do? She tells her girlfriends, and now she's alone with the gin that she allowed to come into the house. The monster's inside the house. It's like a vampire. She invited it in. It didn't show up on its own. Now she's responsible for her own problem with the gin, and she flirts hard.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think by saying, no, it's fine, you can leave it here, like that's really what she wishes were true.
Yes.
I think she's saying, like, I'm fine.
Sure, this first draft is good. You know,
maybe it's even perfect.
I mean, there are some people who just don't drink, who are not like activated,
don't have a
triggered
problem.
by
Right.
So I think she wanted to be one of those people.
Yes.
Once of all, it's all the face that you're presenting. Aidan's presenting this. I'm just up here casually.
Yes.
Miranda's presenting. I could drink if I wanted
I mean,
to.
we all lie to ourselves all the time for short periods of time because we want something to be true.
Well, in this last scene with the gin, Miranda realizes that she calls bullshit on her ability to be a liar. She's not strong enough. She pours it into a glass, and she gets as close. And she even said she hates it.
She smells it.
Which is what will tell you where her level of like, oh, maybe I miss drinking. She hates gin, and yet she's smelling like she's going to have a drink.
Yeah, it's there.
And she actually can't have it in the house.
And she throws it, and then she knows really clearly that it's not even enough to put it in the cabinet. She has to get rid of it in the full-on Miranda all the way to the incinerator.
Thump. I hope you got those.
I like that she waits to hear it.
So when we, so by the way, like when we built in the middle of the season, when her new apartment was built, we had to think ahead.
Yes.
Oh, she's going to need that trash chute down the hall. So everything that's real and on set and planned
also
out.
when once again, I talked yesterday about how sometimes the mix makes the sound some more sophisticated than the temp mix. And when I heard the mix of this, they had made it more realistic. And I said, you have to go back to the cartoon. You have to go back to the ginkity, 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 crash, so that the audience can have a laugh rather than just a piece of information.
It's hard. It's like being in this house.
So Miranda has basically seen the dragon and not been able to slay it, but she basically threw it down the trash chute.
But we know that story isn't over.
And, you know, the other story that's not over in this canon of season 3 is Harry's cancer. And we wanted to make sure that we got him through surgery and on the other side, which is what this storyline is really about. He's at home with balls the size of a bouncy house.
Oh,
yeah. And
name your metaphor.
Bouncy house.
Anyone else have some other pitches?
We wanted to...
And we get the information that his grumpy, very not pleasant oncologist is actually pleased, which tells the audience everything went well. And we have LTW drop by with macadamia nuts just for the convenience of the next moment of the two ladies walking to work together, where we discover that LTW tells Charlotte
that she had a sexy dream about Marion. Now we know, because she's already confessed, she has a little crush in episode 5 to Charlotte, and Charlotte has once before said that's okay, it's just a crush. So now it's like this is the confessional.
It's like step 2.
It's like, is it still okay?
It's progressing.
I'm having a very
I want to say something here
dream.
about the performance. Yes, in the first scene in the hot tub or in the jacuzzi, she sort of was like, that's okay. And in this one, the writing says, that's okay. But Kristen's performance is saying
she's
that's
very
not
enthusiastic.
okay. Kristen's eyes are just wide for a second.
I took it as that she was like titillated by it.
Yeah,
Like,
she was excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
More.
I mean, she's kissed a gardener.
Yeah.
She knows. Like,
Speaking of Gardner, the sex dream is about a farm and vegetables, and she's wearing a bodice, and that's Charlotte's like give. She says, it's not real
That's
because
her
you have a
limit.
bodice. Then says, and then when LTW asks her if she has sex dreams about other men besides Harry, she says yes, and it's not real because some of them I have short hair.
And by the way, that's what a good friend
That
does
cracked
when
me
someone
up.
says, is it okay, blank?
Right.
You say
Validation
yes, happens to me all the time.
Granted.
And then she asks Charlotte if she flirts with anybody at work, and she says the cute guys who hang the art. So that brings us to the gallery where we see the 3 gallerinas. By the way, if you're clocking this, whenever they're at work, Molly and Danny in the costume department always sort of put them in some variations of a black and white.
Yes. I
More or
know.
less. They don't do it ritualistically,
Yeah.
but they do it a lot.
Yes.
And it's just
They're
fun
like
to
a painting that Molly and Danny paint.
Yeah,
like,
and
every
do you know,
time.
I mean, they remind me, they're always 3, which is important because we rarely break them off except in the bar when they're doing coke.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just
and when Leela's helping crack the code.
the code, but mostly they're
fingerhood.
3. And in Walt Disney's Sleeping Beauty, there are those 3 fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather,
Oh my
and they're
God, wow.
funny as a threesome. And these 3 are always together. But what's happening in this moment is they're sort of having a very side-eye version of what this art is. And Charlotte's explaining it was a different time and women couldn't be messy. But as she's talking about this, she gets her vertigo comes back.
We should talk about vertigo
Yeah,
because
this was another
who had
Well,
vertigo?
topic.
Everyone.
well,
Yeah,
we all have
suddenly
Like,
everyone-
I don't have
have
it.
a
Thank
friend.
God, knock
I
wood.
don't either, but
Yeah,
an aunt of mine
neither do
has
I.
it sort of permanently now. I have another friend who has it sometimes.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
I have 3 friends
my
who have
husband
vertigo.
gets it maybe once a year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting problem because can be very severe or it can be light. It can be remedied by an epilepsy maneuver where you just sit down and do it, or it has to have medication,
Or
depending
it's
on
like
how
a
heavy.
And some things work
Testicular-
for some
And people
and
can't get out
not.
of bed
Yeah.
for weeks, and other
Right.
people
But
get
yeah.
over it in an hour.
Once things have started happening to more than one person in the writer's room, then it's like, okay,
We
we've
got
got
to
to
put
doing
vertigo
this,
in.
yeah.
And the
This
other
is
thing,
going
and apologies to anyone who has vertigo because you're talking to
It's not
5 writers
funny,
who
we
don't.
realize.
But the idea of Charlotte saying vertigo and Kai,
younger
Kai
people.
saying like, is that even real? Is that
Right.
like Epstein Barr? Like nobody believes the reality unless it's actually happening to them. But Charlotte
Right.
says she does have vertigo, and it sets up the fact that she's been quite
And
frankly.
she's had it before,
She's had it
too.
before,
Yeah.
but her head's been spinning
Yeah.
story-wise. So it's just amazing that her body would then follow it. And
Yeah.
that's what we sort of play with, just because it's very current. It would happen to Charlotte, and she keeps fighting through it to keep going because
Because she's Charlotte.
Your body always breaks after you've gone through the thing.
Yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean? Like
yes.
you have like a crazy week at work, and then like that
Yes.
Saturday you have COVID
You're
or
in
something.
bed
Like your
for a
body
week.
is just like,
Yeah.
okay, I finished.
I'm
Like we're done.
yeah.
But we wanted to get her to the point, and in this scene, we set up the condom on the bed because it's supposed to be about, messy sex and being in your earlier years. And the only reason the condom's on the bed is because we wanted Charlotte to fall and
into
have it on her arm and have.
And we also thought it would be funny for one of the gallerinas to have to fill it up with lotion.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And Anastasia says, I guess that came more in the 80s. It's just like it's unrealistic on every avenue. But we did want her in the gallery to see Miranda holding the drink that Joy has casually handed her. Here's our very short moment of Joy and Aidan and Carrie and Miranda, that foursome, just really cute. And then she runs over there, but the epilepsy room, and she falls.
This is another example, this art installation, this gallery opening, where we wrote 1,000 different versions of the groupings.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, it was
Right.
going to be like
Every time you see
Aidan.
two people talking, just imagine there. At one point, there were
It was
they were talking to other people.
It's going to like a yogurt bar and having so many toppings and deciding what's going to go with what.
Right.
And two of the toppings we wanted to put in this were Aidan with Sema and Adam. So we had him
Talking
going to
about
the art
deodorant.
show just so we can move their story forward a little bit in the dinner before. First of all, very moved forward. He's not wearing a shirt with writing on it. He looks chic. His hair is combed, and he's got
I
the
love
big,
them
thick,
together.
smart boy glasses.
But he's not wearing deodorant.
Yeah,
I love
he's
them
not
together
wearing.
back
so
to
much.
that.
They are my rom-com. I love them.
I mean, they are great together. And what this is about is Sema's now fully in. They've had
she's
a
dating this
great
guy.
sex life, a great sex life. That sex scene between the two of them, I'm going on the record on this podcast, where
he's
she
behind her?
comes and he doesn't, and her hands are in his mouth, and he's licking her
saying, "Go,
fingers.
baby,
And
go."
of course, the thing I love most about it is they both play it. Sema's gone,
Yeah.
and then they start laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Perfect.
idea of going from passionate, out of control sex into them laughing and her being surprised. Who are you? When he just introduces himself. And then she says that most important thing, did you come? And he says, no, I have all night. Now, come on. That's the
Give
most.
that
What's
guy
not to love?
What's not to love? And then he goes up in her armpit and just
Right.
goes up there and just devours her armpit.
And we don't
Incredibly
address
hot.
it there. You
Incredibly
just
hot, but it's
establish
set
that
up
he's
in
her
this scene
armpit.
in the restaurant where they're having this. She finds out his name is Karma, Adam Karma, and she says, you should have told me that shit before we had sex. And it's because his mother changed their name. His name isn't conveniently Karma. It's writtenly convenient because his mother was a hippie or an artist, and she wanted him to know what's important. But for us in the writing room, Sema meeting a guy named Karma
It's just
is crazy.
Who's
Now,
wonderful.
share.
I have to take you all back to a scene far before this was shot or viewed on television, which was Elisa and I were out at a lovely little cocktail bar in Brooklyn.
This is during the writing season.
This was while we were writing it. And lo and behold, there was a woman in the restaurant, well dressed, who took out
sitting
a thing,
by herself at that
sitting
time.
by herself, put on deodorant as if she were in her home bathroom, just getting
Roll on.
ready. And
Roll
we
on. Full on roll
as
on.
you do.
Roll on. I mean, that is
burst
such
out
a
laughing.
wild
We couldn't
choice.
stop
It's so
laughing.
messy.
Yeah,
It was like,
we were with-
what is happening? What is happening to the world?
So
That's
that
going
is
right
the
in.
genesis of how we write. Elisa and Julie come in and go, you will not believe what happened. We saw this woman doing full-on roll-on deodorant in a public place. We all start laughing. Somebody says that has to go in the show. Then we have to diagnostically figure out where can that go in the show. And we need to show Adam and Sema having sex.
And then
So
we jam it
then
in.
we go, okay, deodorant, sex.
we
Well,
never
and-
let it go.
And also, how can it? What's the interesting
What's the
thing it will bring
deeper-
out in this
the deeper
couple?
truth?
It's true, because then the idea that like deodorant, one person would see as a non-necessity, and another person would sooner die. Like,
But I
have
do want to clear
nightmares.
up. It's not deodorant. He's wearing what is worse, the rock crystal.
Okay, but
which is
You're splitting hairs. Mike.
Yeah,
no,
it-
but we talked a lot about the fact that you were all like, he doesn't wear deodorant. I go, there's no way he doesn't wear deodorant. You can't say somebody doesn't wear deodorant. You can say he's a hippie and wears a new age deodorant.
Okay, but I think
But
therein
that's not
lies
actually
what's
deodorant.
interesting about the
I mean, that's not wearing
a
deodorant.
placebo deodorant.
And I'll tell you right now, someone who's used it, I agree. But I will take a placebo deodorant because it says that this
Oh my
guy
God.
does
Were
believe in
you-
hygiene.
Were you afraid that if we went all the way to no deodorant,
that he
it
would
would
be
be
too
character
gross?
assassination?
Yeah, no, it would be every time somebody's standing there, they'd be like, what the fuck? Doesn't he wear deodorant? Like he smells. Sema, your guy's hot. Aiden be like, dude, you're hot. But
Do you have an onion in your pocket?
yeah, I
What's
mean,
happening?
he's in a garden all day long. I mean, he's going to smell. He has to do something.
Welcome
First
to
of
the
all-
writers.
He brings the funk, he says. And I do like a
Bring
funky
the
smell.
funk.
But that's what the rock crystal is. At least it's a hygiene moment. And it gives her, like, the line, and you should have brought up that shit before we slept together
Right,
too, because
exactly.
I can't be with someone who says things like crystals.
Right. Well, and it was very easy, as you can see, where Elisa and I both fall on the deodorant or no deodorant thing. Like, it was very easy to write her side of that, which is like non-negotiable. Like, call me whatever you want. I'm not giving up my deodorant.
But this just felt like a really fun, again, early relationship.
You're discovering things about each other.
When I think about like our writer's room, actually, we're all in long-term relationships. So it's like we all have to kind of peel back our memories for like, what were those little like stumbling blocks when you're falling in love with someone, or just even before you even know if it's love, but you're lusting.
I've dated a couple men who do not wear deodorant.
Oh my
and
God.
I was okay with it.
Oh, I'm married to a person who does not wear.
Oh, there you
and
go.
she doesn't smell all the time?
No. She even got me to switch to natural, so...
It's phony.
Oh my
it's
God.
phony deodorant.
Anyway, guys, if you were in the writer's room, this is the moment where we would take a lunch break. But I'm gonna, but because it's a pod, this is just comedy chatter. I'm going to push through and say, in the show at this moment, we use the deodorant to say, hey, look, if deodorant's your thing, cool. But when I was up in your armpit, in your armpit business, as he says, I loved it, but I tasted chemicals.
And last night, when I was all up in your armpit business.
Like, wow, look.
I loved it. But I was tasting you with a side of aluminum zirconium, which is cool, if that's your thing.
It's definitely my thing. I would die without it.
Wow, sounds like you have a complicated relationship with your roll-on.
It's not complicated at all. We love each other. I actually have a little travel size in my purse right now, and I'm not traveling.
And also at the gallery, of course, we see 3 other people that we haven't expected to see.
We wanted, of course, to have Anthony and Giuseppe there because, why
That's
not?
fun. They would be there.
And we thought, what a perfect opportunity for Gia, the very wealthy mother of Giuseppe, to also be able to weigh in on the art and
She would
the
be an art
relationship of
collector.
her son, and one more opportunity for her to
Slam
take
him.
a shot at Anthony.
And we also wanted to have another chance to see Mark Kasabian because we like that character and he's real, and also to make a comment on what the art scene is now. He's doing this all because of TikTok. But it's also to establish that Gianna has a lot of money. She's offering to buy a Hockney, any of the Queer Masters, Basquiat, anything.
Essentially to buy her son out. Like, at this point, she's like throwing money at the problem.
Yeah,
this relationship is a problem. I've tried nastiness. I've tried all of these other things.
She's buying him a new loft out of love.
Trying
a new painting. And he says, you've never even been to my apartment. And she goes, small and old. And he goes, you've never been there. And she goes, I'm not talking about the apartment. She's talking about Anthony.
And
then
of
Anthony
course,
walks up.
It was, how could we not take the opportunity to have Victor Garber and Patty Lupone
In the
walk
same
off?
scene, right.
Yes.
There goes the best
Sondheim
of all,
legends.
yeah. And actually, there's a line in there for anyone who's a theater freak. Victor played Anthony the sailor in the original Sweeney Todd, and his big song was "I Hear You, Joanna."
I feel you, Joanna.
And as they walk away, he says, "I hear you, Gianna." So that's a little tidbit for all of
Easter
you
egg.
theater freaks.
I didn't get that, and I love that show, and I love him in
Yeah.
it.
So here's the thing.
I'm mad at
As they walk
myself.
away and she's dissed, Anthony is basically saying she wants me murdered. She wants me killed. And that's ridiculous. Or she's definitely trying to kill us, which we all know she is. And he says, be yourself. Cook for her. And Giuseppe says, alone, without me.
Right.
Now, the other new relationship that
yin
dare
and
not
yang.
speak his name is LTW and Marion. And after we set up that she
had the sexy
imagined
dream.
she had a sex dream where they were on a farm.
Well, let's not skip over the sexy morning with Herbert, where she wakes up.
She tries to erase the sex
she
dream.
tries to. Good idea. She tries to erase the sex dream by being
This
sexy
is
with
my
her husband.
favorite thing.
Record
because
over.
she,
Fuck the dream out of my head.
but that we've seen Herbert a number of times, seduce her and start get into it. And we were excited to have her wake him up,
Initiate, yeah.
initiate sex, and that he wants to go to the bathroom first, and then like the least sexy words anyone's ever heard
Oh
is
my God.
add toilet paper to the grocery list.
I think the least sexy
Oh my
sound before the least
God.
sexy word is the sound of the toilet seat going up in the other room. Clink. Well, that's not sexy.
Yeah.
Right. So there we are.
Again,
She tried.
marriage.
We wanted to show her trying
And
to
we take
channel that energy back into
We
her
take
marriage.
a very long, lovingly long look at her disappointment as he's peeing. We just keep going in and Nicole is literally thinking, well, okay, and don't forget to Gabby that pink seltzer that she likes, and it's just like she went from being completely the sexiest woman in the world
to a mom, an errand
To mom.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Mom, wife, errand.
Nothing less
runner.
sexy than being like, by the way, you do the grocery shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a bummer.
And we shamefully cut to the opening of a papaya next. The crisp sexual papaya.
Did you say shamefully
really...
or shamelessly?
Shamelessly.
That was really outrageous.
It's outrageous, right?
Sam,
it's outrageous.
Sam, I thought of you during that scene.
I was like, not him eating a giant vagina in front of her.
Remember, Anu kept wondering, are you sure? Are
Anu
you
kept saying to
sure?
me,
wanna see that?
very sweet, MBK, the papaya, really? Is that a thing?
Are you?
And I was like,
Right.
I said,
Is
it
Michael
couldn't.
going to want a close shot of the papaya?
I said,
Yes.
I want
The
an
answer is
extremely
yes.
Some of
close-up.
us needed to see that.
I mean, and the prop department had 9 papayas by because they're not all ripe. So we had to have the ripening of the papaya. But she was sort of
The
horrified.
papaya meeting.
Oh my God.
To analyze.
This was Sex in the City back in the day. Show the obvious thing, and yes, a moist.
Oh my God.
Papaya filled with luscious, glistening black pearls.
And that
is the
beautiful actor eating it. Makad Brooks, who plays Marion, and I, LTW going, no, I'm happy with my usual salad with my no croutons dressing
I
on
mean,
the
this
side.
is, Nicole Ari Parker is quite a clown, really, a clown actress. And she's working that kale salad and it's just a great contrast.
And by the way, when Michael Patrick King says clown, that is the highest form of compliment
Oh, by the way,
anyone
To be
could
clear,
ever get.
Lucille
Like, that's
Ball.
the A++.
I think all of our actors are extremely wonderful actors, but they have that other rare thing is that they really can be clowns when you need them to. All of them, every single one, they all have the ability to go to the biggest comic moment in the world. So it is a compliment.
You kind of have to be for this show.
For this show, you have to be able to cry
both.
and then be the clown. But the clown is always in charge, by the way. It's not the clown's a victim. The clown is the clown. And the thing about her is
Clowns are always in charge. I'm sorry, guys. Can we? I mean,
and that's,
I want to live in that universe.
I need to put that on a
They
shirt.
have the seltzer and the pies, and they're always ready to go. They have the car. They can
Sometimes
get,
they're happy and sometimes they're sad.
Yeah, but even a sad clown's in charge. Anyway, the happy clown that she is making, Nicole making that salad so funny, and what she realizes is, no, I'm not doing this. And he invites her to go to a screening of a movie that is being produced by somebody who's associated with the Obama's production company, which is The Thing, the holy grail she's been chasing for all these episodes. How am I going to get Michelle Obama connected to this? Because the production company wants to do that before they hand it to PBS, and he puts it right there.
And you realize she goes from this scene with Marion where she's feeling seen and caught and says, you were thinking about us? Oh, about Michelle Obama, of course. And then she goes home to Herbert, who, I have a work thing, choosing work over you? No. It's like, again,
Over Charlotte, he
she's
says.
saying, I wasn't going to say that. Are you choosing work over Charlotte? She's just
dripping with guilt.
She's guilty. She's guilty, and in the classic Sex and the City way, she's guilty to a salsa beat, which is we really use this music anymore, but it really is very Sex and the City. She goes right down. dang, dang, dang. And then she's running in and she's eating, I don't know, grapes or something. She's just trying to get out of that house. And the kid's saying, Mommy, can you get my seltzer? And she's like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Right.
And then you cut into, in their story, you go into the movie, and they're in this big, beautiful screening of a documentary about two jazz players who worked perfectly together and were always in sync when he played his horn. And it's just that thing where you feel the back of the hairs on the back of your neck coming up when something sexual enters the room. Do you ever have that, or is it just me? Because I'm feeling it right now. Do you guys ever have that where you suddenly know something sexual is happening, maybe on a date, or it just went to another dimension?
If the Trader Joe's guy is too nice to me, I feel that.
I mean, that's why she leaves.
Right.
I think she feels it for sure. She panics. It's like her only response is
she has to
and
run
that
away.
was another interesting discussion we had. Like, what is the aggression that he does?
Right.
And it is now just his knee touches her knee. But the reality is, in the editing room, I actually barely touched it because I didn't want to look like she was colluding. She's jumping off that third rail of the subway. She wants to get out of there immediately because it's dangerous.
Well, and she doesn't trust herself, I think, also.
And then she says the most bizarre line, I have children, they need seltzer.
Right.
Okay.
By the way, that is such a modern day, the fact that children are drinking flavored seltzer right now is that's all you need to know.
And then you jam right into a grocery where she's madly trying to be the best mom that she hasn't been all day.
Shopping.
She's throwing
She's
stuff
guilt
into that
shopping.
count, whatever she needs to do. Seltzer is going in, and she calls Charlotte, and Charlotte,
She's
we get to see
panicking.
Kristen do yet another version of coming home in an altered state.
Oh my God. The physical comedy of Kristen Davis.
And the funny thing is, I wasn't there, and I was like, how did the vertigo stuff go? She goes, I think it went pretty good. Elisa and Julie were there, and they thought it was good.
So frickin'
I mean, I
funny.
didn't know when I saw it. She's literally bent over, and it's so adorable.
Holding
The
the
floor is going to fall out from underneath her, and she did justice to that.
But also, I love, as any good friend does, no matter how bad your situation is, if a friend calls you and they are in a crisis, you totally subvert your own crisis.
Yeah.
And I love that she just talks her off the ledge.
And what LTW says through the phone is, I feel like a terrible wife and mother. I mean, and that's up for debate whether she is or not. But the reality is Charlotte's off balance, and now so is LTW, completely off balance.
And also, he's calling. And the fact that, again, it's like she's so guilt-ridden, she assumes, this is going to be an awkward
wants me
conversation.
again.
Right.
Yes.
Right,
And
because
of
it's
course,
one thing to have a one-way crush, and then it's another thing to have it coming
Is this
back at you.
happening?
Right.
And
And
of
at
course,
this
he's
point,
calling with a work thing.
which redeems him, by the way. He invited her to go because of Terry Clark, the lady from the Higher Ground, and then maybe that was a story until now when he actually does make that connection happen and put her on the phone.
You know, you just talked about the culpability of her in the movie theater, and that is something that we also went round and round and round about how to dramatize it. So everything's calibration and a lot of discussions.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussions about just because you're married or just because you're in a relationship, all the way back to Sex and the City with Carrie and the affair.
Is it okay to flirt?
Is
if
it
you're
okay
married?
to flirt? And it depends how close you get to the fire, I guess.
And we don't always, in the room, we don't always agree with each other about what is too far. And so it's constant calibration.
Well, we did agree with each other today a lot, and I'm really happy that we were all together to discuss episode 8. And just like that, we've reached the end of this podcast. Thanks so much to Julie, Elisa, Samantha, and Rachel for joining me. We'll be back next week to unpack episode 9, Present Tense. And as ever, you can stream new episodes of And Just Like That Thursdays on Max. And Just Like That, The Writer's Room is produced by Sony Music Podcasts for Max. At Sony, Sharon Morris is the executive producer, Gianna Palmer is the lead producer, Sammy Allison is head of production. Tamika Balance-Kalasny is our production manager, and Sam Baer is our engineer. Special thanks to Becky Rowe, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly from the Max podcast team. Thank you for listening.